a very strange sexual puzzle. If anyone has any tips on how to encourage romance in the barnyard, we're all ears. Right, Lenny? Now this may look like just a pile of dirt to you, but to me, well, I guess it is just a pile of dirt. I could see one chicken just poking her butt on this and then leaving a bad review on Airbnb or whatever, and then none of the birds ever come here just because of that.
Can I speak your language? Speak that a little
Yeah.
bit. Well, I started not to come up because it was so cloudy. We'll give it a chance.
Is your dad going back in?
He's trying to tell Mom. Yep. I've been in the back pasture a lot. Both Dad and I have been in the back pasture a lot, chipping away at it. Essentially what we're trying to do is clear as much of the junk trees away that we can, kind of give ourselves a second large pasture. What we do with that pasture to be determined, but it's one of those things that we just have been kind of trying to work at. Mostly Dad. He's been cutting down trees. There's been a few trees that have dropped now. He's been chopping up the wood. A lot of it we're going to save for firewood. I think Dad has designs on, we have a wood stove that we took out from their house, and he wants to put it in the pole barn, I think, his pole barn. And so eventually we're going to need a lot of firewood. And so we've got plenty of it. So I've been chopping wood. It's fun. I don't know why. I like doing it. I get into a zen-like state when I do it. I've also been very cognizant about the fact that we're going to have a lot more chickens. You know, the 12 chicks are in the A-frame at the moment, or 11 chicks, sorry, and they're doing really well. They're thriving, and within a month, maybe a month and a half, they will be out and integrated with the rest of the flock, the layers as well as the turkeys. And I started to realize, like, I don't have enough roosting space for them. That's a long-term issue. But short term, one of the things I was thinking about was hanging up some roosting bars, some additional roosting bars in their lean-to. I actually had a dream about cutting down a nice medium-sized roosting bar and connecting the cedar, the old cedar that's next to the barn, to one of the lean-to posts, and using those 2 points to hang a roosting bar. So that's what I've been working on today. So I think I'm getting somewhere with this roost idea that I had a vision of and I dreamed up. And it's actually not as bad as I thought it would be, as easier than I thought it would be. I used lag screws to secure them to both the post on the one side and the cedar tree on the other side. And right here where it's kind of curvy and I couldn't get good purchase, I just rested the branch, the roost pole, in the crook in the armpit between this old fence post and the cedar. That, as you can see, the cedar kind of grew around the fence post. Interesting. This isn't complete. I'm not too happy with the security of these lag bolts, these lag screws. These didn't go in all the way, as you can see. I mean, it's secure. This thing isn't going anywhere. That one did, but this one did not. I just couldn't get it to go in anymore. It must have hit something, maybe something behind that knot. So I'd like to back this out and maybe try a different spot, maybe down there, maybe up there, I'm not sure. Or perhaps get a shorter lag bolt, lag screw. But they're slightly offset, as you can see, so the birds will be able to jump up. They like height. This is very high. This is higher than their current roosting pole, which is over there. So this is an alternative roosting platform. Obviously, when it's raining like this won't be a place that they really want to hang out at, but it is something. It is an alternative. So when we start getting more of these laying chickens out here, and eventually turkeys, which we'll talk about the turkey program here in a minute, when we start getting many more birds out here, this is a good kind of temporary solution till we get something more permanently built here. That's down the road. Right now, I need more places for the birds to sleep, and I think this will do the trick. I'm happy with it. Could probably even step on it. You know what? That could end up hilariously bad, so I'm going to leave that to the birds. I'm happy with what I've got so far. Obviously, I'm going to wait for drier weather to redo some of these lag screws, but if I were a chicken, if I were a turkey, I'd want to hang out on this thing. So far, they haven't seemed to notice it yet, but I think I'll place some of them on here this evening just so that they know that it's there and an option. I should probably take this off too, eh? I could see one chicken just poking her butt on this barbed wire and then leaving a bad review on Airbnb or whatever, and then none of the birds ever come here just because of that. It seems like it's been raining more. Earlier this year, earlier in the season, February and March, it wasn't really raining all that much. We had a couple of spells where it was raining here and there, but for the most part, it was fairly dry. That hasn't been the case the past week and a half, 2 weeks. It's been raining a lot. On the one hand, it's easy for me to complain about it because it seems like every time I have spare moments to come out here and work, it's raining. But on the other side of that coin, rain is good. Rain is a good thing. It's why we're so green here. It's why plants grow so well here. It's why we have such a high water table. The rain is a good thing here. So yes, it's annoying that it's raining whenever I want to work, but it's nice to get our rain in during the rainy season, and this is the rainy season. The garden is ready to go. There's some weed whipping I can do in the lanes, but otherwise, maybe a little cleanup of the potato bed, but otherwise, it's ready for compost. And speaking of compost, as you guys know, I have my carefully curated compost pile that we've been working on. It's what I talked about in the last episode. And that stuff's beautiful. That stuff is so rich. I've added ash to it. I've turned it with the tiller, and that stuff's great, but we're a lot more sparing with how we use that. I'll talk about how we apply our very special, carefully crafted, carefully curated compost in another episode coming up. But otherwise, a big question that we get a lot is, well, your beds are very low. How do you get them higher? How do you give room for the plants to stretch out their legs? And typically will supplement with outside compost. Not something we really like to do all that much. We're trying to limit the inputs that come into the homestead and focus on the stuff we can get from what's already here and sustaining and kind of recycling, keeping a closed loop as much as possible. But it's just been a kind of a necessity every year, bringing in compost from a trusted local nursery. Well, this year I made an interesting discovery. We won't need to do that. We will be able to keep our inputs at home. I think the rain's letting up somewhat. I want to show you guys the discovery I made a couple days ago. So next to our regular curated compost pile, I'd forgotten about this. You'll see there's a nice big chunk, a nice big mound of old compost. It's got a little bit of weed action running through the bottom, which I can sort through, but basically this had just been sitting here for 2 years. I had this thing. This was covering it. I forgot about it. So I pulled this off and I started mounding up the compost, and lo and behold, there's plenty, but that's not all. There's several more of these little patches that I put down, like I said, maybe 2 years ago, and completely forgot about them. So there's this, which I'll stir and I'll till and I'll get rid of the weeds that are kind of working along the bottom of that. But I'm gonna go find out to see if I have anything left in those other patches of old compost. Here's the other one behind the tool shed. Let's see what we got. There's some bugs, that's fine. Why don't we lift it up? I don't know if this stuff is as salvageable. It might be. It sure is heavy. I could probably sift through some of this stuff. There's a lot. That'll be a job. You'll see that the bottom is kind of matted over with these weeds that were going through it. I'll need to come through and take these out. But otherwise, if I use a sifter, and that'll be a job for a non-rainy day, if I use a sifter, I can probably get a lot of good compost out of here. It runs from here to there. If I roll it up, there'll be another big mound of compost that I can pick through and sift. And finally, there's this pile, which I think was the most picked through. And right now it's wet enough to where I don't know if I'll get a good sense of it, but oh goodness. Oh man, no. This is great. The crickets love it. All of this stuff, when it's dry, I can roll up, sift through, and salvage. If I pull this stuff out, these weed roots, and sift through it, I've got plenty of usable compost. I wish it wasn't so wet right now. I'd do it right now. Now this may look like just a pile of dirt to you, but to me, well, I guess it is just a pile of dirt. But it's dirt I don't have to buy. It's compost. And so, really, this is a jackpot. This is another resource that I have right here in the homestead. I don't need to leave the Homestead to get another input, spend money and time unloading another truck full or 2 truckfuls of compost. I think between all these different piles, once I sift them through, I should have more than enough compost to use, in addition to my curated pile on the garden this year. It's a win, really. So what's the picture like with our livestock, our animal assortment? We've had turkeys on this homestead, laying chickens, meat chickens, pigs. I think that's it. I think those are the only animals that we've had. What are we doing this year? Earlier we had talked about pigs, and we're still wanting to get pigs, but the more we talk about it and the more we think about it, the more we want to one day really deeply consider sheep. Right now, I'm trying not to think too far ahead. What is it ahead of me? We've got the breast chickens, which we're going to use for meat. We will be incubating those eggs starting this weekend, I think. Kathy and Jim from Two Turtles Homestead are sending us some eggs, some fertilized breast eggs ready to incubate. So we'll start on our meat chicken program, and obviously we've got their coop and run is going to be separate from the laying chickens, and that's just about ready. And then on this side, we've got our layer chickens and then turkeys. I think it's worth talking about the turkeys for a second, specifically the 2 turkeys that we have and that we love. We're not going to cull Lenny and Laverne. They're kind of like pets. They're kind of our mascots. We obviously love turkey meat, and we've processed many turkeys over the years, but there's something about Laverne and Lenny that we want to hold on to them and ideally use them for breeding. And there's been kind of an interesting development with Laverne. Laverne is now laying, not every day, but nearly every day. We're getting 5 to 6 eggs a week from Laverne. She usually lays in this litter box that I kind of co-opted as a laying box. And there's actually an egg in here right now. I did not plan that. There's 2 eggs. There's kind of a regular sized chicken egg, and then one of Laverne's turkey eggs. As you can see, the turkey egg's quite a bit bigger and it's spotted. The shell is also much thicker, so when you crack it, it tastes like chicken eggs. You can eat it just like you could a chicken egg. And it tastes great. But she's been laying a lot. And so obviously our minds have been turning to fertilization. If you have chickens in a rooster, there's a pretty solid chance that the eggs that you get from those chickens are going to be fertilized. And if you have an incubator, awesome, go ahead and incubate those eggs. As we constantly talk about on this channel, that's one less input. You kind of are creating a circle of life on your own homestead, which is awesome. Now that we're getting all these turkey eggs, we're thinking, okay, maybe we throw some of Laverne's eggs into the incubator and try and hatch them out, see what happens. And there's just one problem, and I don't quite know how to put it, with Lenny right here looking at me. We haven't seen Lenny attempt to mate with Laverne at all. At all. We've had toms in the past, and almost always by this point in their development, I don't know Lenny's exact age, but he has the snood hanging down his head, he's got the beard. Usually by this point in their development, they're getting busy with the turkey hens. And we haven't seen any activity from Lenny. Obviously, we're not watching him all the time, but I do keep a close enough eye on him to have ascertained that there's no romance between the 2 of them. And so I don't, obviously we could just get more turkeys. You can never get sexed turkeys. You always have to get a straight run of turkeys. So we're pretty much guaranteed to get a few toms, and maybe I buy some red bourbon heritage turkeys, get a few toms, and maybe one of those will mate with her. But there's something, I really want Lenny to reproduce, to carry on his lineage. And so far there just hasn't been any attempts on his part to mate with Laverne. There's Laverne. I think she knows we're talking about her. And so I don't know if it's kind of a, again, I'm not sure quite how to put this, but it's kind of a very strange sexual puzzle that I don't know how to solve. And so I've briefly looked online at how to encourage mating behavior. There's not really that much out there. There's a lot of tenuous stuff, but not really much on how to get turkeys in the mood, specifically tom turkeys. He may just not be into Laverne. So we're gonna keep an eye. He may be on the cusp, maybe things will warm up a little bit more and he will go bananas with Laverne. So far that hasn't happened. We love you, Lenny, we do. We just want you to we want to see your kids, basically, is what I'm trying to say. If anyone has any tips on how to encourage romance in the barnyard, we're all ears. Right, Lenny? Thanks for joining us on this Work With Me Wednesday. There's only so much you can do when it's rainy. There's the old saying, make hay while the sun shines, which implies you can do other indoor things when it's raining. But I was able to get some outdoor stuff done today, which I'm appreciative of under the lean-to. So thanks for hanging out with us, and look forward to the arrival of the breast eggs that we're going to start incubating this weekend. And I think we're going to do more movement in getting the garden ready. So lots to do, lots to keep up with, lots to watch. Thanks for hanging out with us, and until next time, remember, as always, slowly, slowly.